This is the Raw and Radical Woman in the Arts podcast, and I am your host, Maureen Broadbeck.
Raw, unprocessed.
In each episode, we explore the mechanisms of identity, vulnerability, authenticity, empowerment, and social change through conversations with inspiring women who are making history and challenging the status quo in both the art world and in society.
Radical, rebel, progressive.
We talk about their real-life challenges and celebrate cis and transgender women so that you can be inspired, empowered, take action, and further your critical understanding about what it means to be a woman in the arts.
Woman, feminism. A revolutionary catalyzing reformation. Radical.
Today I am welcoming Anne-Claire Bisch. She is the General Director of the Geneva Freeport and Warehouses. It is behind the doors of this rather large, discreet and grey building that has stored some of the finest and most expensive artworks in the world, and also behind these high security doors that a lot of the art market transactions take place. We are going to enter a very interesting world, unknown for most artists. She will share with us what happens in this fascinating place, and also her views on being a successful woman and mother in the arts. Hi Anne-Claire, welcome to the show.
Hi Maureen.
I am so glad to have you here. This is really great. Thanks for coming. You are an art historian, an art insurance expert, an author, a lawyer, and you are now the General Director of the Geneva Freeport and Warehouse here just next to downtown Geneva. You also founded Artssurance in 2014, an insurance company specialized in artwork and object of value. The Freeports are stocking on 150,000 square meters of artworks and antiques from all over the world in a high security place. The artwork that is stored there are estimated at $1 billion. This is quite impressive. It is sometimes called the biggest museum in the world. Could you explain to us how this works and what happened behind the doors of this institution?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very honored to be here and also very shy because it's an exercise not so easy for me in my position, in my business position. So thank you for the invitation and thank you for your confidence.
Oh, you're very welcome.
The Geneva Freeport, it's a very special place in the art business, in the art market. Just imagine a very old lady born 130 years ago, and who followed the market, the art market business. And what is behind the door? Behind the door, there are some people and there are some very high value objects. All different type of objects. There are some artworks, some antiques, some contemporary pieces, but also some wines. Many people forget that we have approximately 3 million of bottles of wine.
Wow.
Yes. It's very... I always wanted to organize a dinner or a party, but you imagine I can't. So we have 3 million of wines, and especially Grand Cru. So yes, coming from Bordeaux and from Bourgogne, that are storage here for some wine collectors worldwide. So we have many different type of things. We also have some people working in the art market, like photographs, like restorers, like framers, like art scientists and art specialists and experts. And we work also in very strong relationships with some auction houses, like the biggest auction house you can imagine, but also with some smaller and local Swiss auction house. So what's behind the door? It's like a bee house. It's very active, very dynamic, and it's a paradox because behind the door it's some safe rooms, and depending of what is stored, it's different size of the room, different type of conservation and condition. and also different type of people coming inside or not. If it's, for example, a showroom, you can have some private collectors, you can have some clients of the auction house coming. And if it's a specialized room rented by a particular client, or it can be a bank or an institution, nobody comes inside except the people renting the room. So what's on the other side of the room? I would say it's like if you're traveling in a city and try to imagine what's behind the windows you see on the light in the winter and the Christmas period. My answer is in the same time very big and very small, because we can't tell you what's inside the doors. Yeah. But many people, it's a phantasm zone, I would say, for many people, many journalists. People often say that it's the biggest museum in the world. And I would say you speak from the art market and from 1 billion value. 1 billion value means a lot of things and nothings in the same times, because you're the best people to know that it's very difficult to give an art price.
Yeah. You know what really astounds me is that from the outside it feels so quiet and so discreet. It's very Geneva-like. So grounding also. It's quite impressive in its size, but it looks like not much. You have no clue what's behind and inside and all the life. How many people are there daily about?
Are working in the site during a day, approximately between 1,000 and 1,500 people are working and traveling in the site, in the place of La Praille, not in the airport zone. So, which is very big and which is nothing comparing to the artwork inside. Yeah. And that's why from outside it's very quiet, it's very grey, it's very neutral, it's very discreet. Yeah. And it's very important for us to be discreet and to be confidentiality is the key of our business. Yeah.
What are for you the new challenges that you think you are facing with this? I mean, you just took this position, you just started. The world is changing, the art world is changing. What do you see forthcoming?
First challenge is that I'm now in the head of this institution after someone who was in the place during 22 years. So the first challenge is to follow someone having been in the place during 22 years. The second challenge is that they have never had someone from my generation, so I'm 42 years old, in the head of this institution. That's the second challenge, because I have lots of ideas and lots of projects to move the walls, to open the doors, and to look on the other side of the windows. So, yes, that's the second, I would say, more philosophical challenge. The third is that it's the first time they have the woman in the head of this institution. It's in the spirit of the time today, but it's also very challenging for us. I mean, for me, but also for my team, because most of our clients in the art market are still a man's world. Yeah. And maybe it's not so easy for them. It was not easy for them on the first day of the first week to see to have a boss with some high heels next to the trucks. But I think it sounds good now, so I hope so. I have a very good team. And what will be the challenge I see for the future for the Freeport, the Geneva Freeport and the art market is a mix between the transparency and the confidentiality. And I explain why. There are more and more needs of transparency in the art market for some good reasons. Transparency about the provenance, about the clients, about the prices, about the intermediaries. Yeah. So I think it's for good reasons for the artists. Yeah. But you also have to be very careful for the discretion and for the confidentiality, because you can have a very open-minded business, but don't forget that artworks are not everyday life objects. People live with these objects, so it's something very intimate, and you don't want to give too much information about something which you have very intimate life. Yes. And the second thing is that they very often have some very high prices, and you need to be discreet and be confidential, just not to have some bad surprises with some burglar, with some just to preserve it. So it's not to preserve some bad market reasons, but more to present the life of the objects.
Yeah. Did it ever happen that someone, I'm just curious, did it ever happen that someone tried to come and steal some artwork? Or
please give me some wood. I have to touch it. Yeah.
It's very, you could make a good movie with that, actually.
I know we can make some good movie. We very often have some journalists and people coming who wants to make some good movie, but we ask them to make another movie and not a scary movie in the Geneva Freeport. Please, come on. So, yeah, it happened, but fortunately, we are very, very, very careful with the security. Yeah. And that's one of the first point of our financial objective for each year. It's the security.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. Could you tell me, Anne-Claire, how does it work at the Port Franc? What is the process? Why people come see you? While people actually contact you?
They contact us because we have two different ways of storage. We have Swiss zone storage and we have a free zone storage. What does it mean? The free zone storage means that when you have some artworks stored in these places, they have no taxes during the storage.
Yeah.
And in the Swiss places storage, it's as if you go in another storage room, more classical. I explain why we are a bit more particular than our other storage rooms. Why could it be interesting to be in a free zone in the Freeport? Imagine that you have some pieces stored in this free zone and then they travel for some exhibitions. It helps for the organization of the exhibitions and for the costs, for the customs costs. So that's important for me because people say that if some art pieces are stored in the Geneva Freeport, nobody will never see these masterpieces. And that's absolutely wrong. That can be right, sure, for some collectors. But for most of them, that's absolutely wrong. Because this way of storage and this type of free zone we have give the opportunity to the collectors to loan their art pieces and to help to organize the exhibitions worldwide. Yeah. Because when you organize a very big exhibition in the museums, can be in the Louvre, in the Metropolitan, Victoria and Albert, so you have some very big costs. You have the security costs, you have the insurance costs, you have the transport costs, you have the communication and advertising costs. And if you have some costs less, it can be the difference that helps you to organize some masterpieces exhibitions. People never think of it. And I think it's very important to show and discover art for everybody, to help students to go and to discover some things in museums. The other reason why people come to us in some storage in the Swiss zone is that there are some different other free ports in the world, in Luxembourg, in Singapore, in the United States, in Delaware, and very probably quickly in England and in other places in Asia. I suppose so. The English, they are very, very excited by the Brexit opportunities. So it's very interesting for us too, as business thinking. But why people come in Geneva? They come in Geneva, in the Geneva Freeport, some very, very practical reason. We are the oldest and the biggest in the world.
All right, yeah.
I would say that's why we're the best, but it's not the reason. And you always need to have a bit more humility. What I can tell you is that today we are full 98%.
Yeah.
And we have more ask than places. So people come because it's a neutral country. There's some stability. It's a financial place. Don't forget that I often say that 0.9% of the national population all over the world lives in Switzerland, but we have between 6 and 10% of the collectors worldwide based in Switzerland. We are next to Art Basel. We are in the center of Europe. It's a safe political and economical place. So for this systematical reason, it's good for the collectors to store their pieces in the Geneva Freeport, but we also give them the opportunity to organize for them the insurance, we organize for them the transport, we have some showroom if they want to show a pieces to our clients, to our restorers, to our framers. So there are lots of activity, like a hub in this big place. So you said it's very interesting because from the outside it seems to be very quiet and very closed with nobody in the buildings and in the place. Well, you see nobody because it's so big that even if you have hundreds of people, you can see them because it's really, really, really big. That's the first reason. And the second reason, it's very big, but with a real hub of activities and a portfolio of things we can offer to the clients. So that's why they come to us. Another thing which is very important for us with this neutrality is the question of security.
Yeah.
You know, I worked in the art insurance before, so it's very, very important for me to think of the question of, the fire, the water, people coming in the site. We take the identity card and passport for everybody. We have the biometric to go in the place. What's interesting for us also in our team, most of the employees work in the society since 20 years ago. Which means they feel well, so that's good. But which means it's very safe for the people storing their artworks here because there are less movement and they can be confident with what people see. Yeah. So people I always say to my employees, when you go outside, when you go to your home and your family, you have seen anything, you have seen anybody, you have moved nothing and you have heard nothing. And I'm very confident for that. And that's also important for our reputation. Yeah. So I would say it's economic reason, political reason, neutrality reason, business reason. And we have also some very good conservation condition for the artworks. Yeah. Not many people know, but we have one of the places in the world having the best rate for insurance for the conservation for the artworks. Which means that our biggest problem in the place is that there are so many amounts and values that it's complicated for the insurance company to find the financial capacity to insure the place. But in the same time, we have one of the best places in the world for all the security and conservation. So even if we are very discreet, we are very in our times and in the future for that. And you ask me for one of the next challenges is to keep this high level and always going better in this way.
Yeah, this is really interesting. You know, I can see at my small scale when I have an exhibition abroad and I have to take 1 or 2 or 3 of my artwork and bring it across the border. Oh my, it's so complicated. And it's absolutely does not work the way the art business for me as an artist works. You know, you can export, temporary export for a certain amount of time, but then you have to make sure the piece return, but often the piece travels somewhere else. And so you have to pay a certain amount and then you never get the money back, but then you don't sell the play. It's really complicated. So it totally makes sense.
I think, and we also discussed before about the transparency in the art market. If you want more transparency, you also want to help the artworks to move and to travel. And for that, you need some tools like us. Yeah. So I think we are a very good tool also for the art market and for the transparency. And that's why we have such strong relationship with the custom. So it helps,
So you always worked in the art market. What is your experience as a woman, you know, in this market that is still mostly dominated by men?
I would say that when I began my study, I began study in the same term art history and law because I wanted to work in the art market and I thought that insurance was a good way of that, because nobody think of it. And so art market is quite dominated by men, but insurance too. So if you put the both together, it's very, very interesting. I would say that when I began 20 years ago, it was more difficult than today. I began in for Lloyd's syndicates in the English market, and there wasn't no ladies. So world changed for that. And the most difficult was to be considered by men, thinking that if you are a young lady and if you studied art history, it's just to have enough culture to be a good wife and a good mother and not really to work. So yeah,
nice.
That's why, yeah. But it's quite challenging. I think that when you arrive in some places and some position, then it can be helpful to be a woman.
Yeah.
So I prefer to be positive.
I was wondering if you can talk about the Responsible Art Market initiative founded in 2015. Because you are one of the founding members?
I was not the founding members in the beginning when they created this initiative, but they contacted me relatively quickly after they founded it. I was for a member specialized for the art insurance market, and now I'm a member for the Geneva Freeport. And it's a very important initiative. You asked me the challenge I see for the next year for the Geneva Freeport and the art market. And this is a very good example of it, because if you want to have a safe and healthy market, you have to be more transparent in this market, which doesn't mean you have to give all the information in the media and in the newspaper. So that's why it's a very, very good initiative with some lawyers, with some people from the galleries, from the auction house, from the art market. Yes, they organize some publications and some colloques once per year. And you can't imagine all the discussions we have before that, because we all have some different point of view. And
I bet.
I think it's very, very important, yeah.
Yeah, because the mission of the Responsible Art Market is to raise awareness or the risk faced by the art market industry and give practical guidance to all the people working in the market. Is that it?
Yes, they have different projects. One of the first projects was to work on some guidelines for the seller, for the buyer, and for the artwork itself. Another project I worked on it was for guidelines for experts, which is a very, very, very big and touchy question. Who can be an expert? What has to be an expert? Can an expert be paid? And how much? And by who? And what are all the responsibility in relationship with this expertise? And yeah, I think it could be really helpful for the market. We now have some relays in France, in London, in New York, and some relationship with people from the different art fairs, contemporary and antiques art fairs. So it's becoming baby is growing, so it's good.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I think in a general way, the world wants to try to be more responsible in many different areas. And finance is one, and the environment is another. And I think it's overall, we are all working towards a good direction, you know. And this is very positive.
This is very positive, but it's always a question of balance in life. So transparency doesn't have to mean mainstream.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing for the art market. For example, transparency in the art business is a very good thing for the artist, for the alive artist.
Yeah.
Then he has an idea about the prices, about the collectors, about the exhibitions, the galleries, the museums, the fairs, and what else. But the art market doesn't have to forget that behind the door of the artwork, there is an artist, there is an idea, there is creativity, there are some works, there are some engagement. People don't have to forget it in the name of the transparency.
Yeah, because as an artist, our work is very intimate.
Yeah.
And we are so focused on what we do in our studio. We forget that there is an entire world around that lives and evolves around artwork.
Yeah.
And for us, it's very foreign because we actually don't really know that word so well.
And it's not your job.
Yeah.
I would say
really interesting.
Yeah, but there is a real difference between the artist's life and the art market, not only for commercial artists. And if I go further, for what I imagine for the art market in the future, I would say 3 or 4 different ways, which means, first of all, the art market, with what I see in my practice now since 20 years, is still growing and growing for what is absolutely sure. For example, the Impressionists, the beginning of the 20th century, and some very sure projects and artists from the 20th century, Picasso and others. Picasso, Dali, Derain, Matisse, and others. That's a first way of investment, because you spoke from art and finance, and one first way is that art is considered as a business, as an investment, as a value.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second way is maybe to consider art in something more decorative. You can see it today when you go to IKEA, for example, you see some artwork in some fantastic frames, and you say, well, I can put it on the wall in my flat or in my houses. It goes well. So art can be more decorative and has nothing to do with the art business.
Yeah.
The third way is that maybe more and more people consider themselves like artists. With an iPhone and with some music, you can create some incredible pictures, incredible photos, and then you go to, we're in Switzerland, so I can say, we go to Mikasa or I don't know where, and to print it and to put it in a frame you bought in IKEA in the wall, and you can have some very decorative art you did yourself.
Yeah.
Even if you have no technique, even if you have no really wow, and I would say even if you have not always some tastes. Big question. But more and more people can be artists. And the fourth way of the art market evolution may be perhaps that now you have some 3D prints and some 3D artworks. I imagine something more immersive, mixing the five senses, mixing the pictorial art, the video, that's already known, but mixing the music, mixing the big spaces, and it's a mix about the different initiatives you can have worldwide.
Very transdisciplinary.
Yeah, and this has nothing to see with the finance and with the assets.
You wrote a book in 2017 called Portrait de Galerie, which is a portrait of gallery.
It's a very intimate book. The context was a bit particular because I was in a business meeting and I learned suddenly that my mother had breast cancer, and it was how can I say it? A traumatism. So it was a hurricane. That's the good word. It was a hurricane. Yeah. And we didn't know what to do with that, me and my brother. And then the doctors were absolutely pessimist. So and I thought, what can I do with that, with this new, and what can I do myself with, what I have in my brain, in my heart, in my hands, what can I do with that? And I thought, well, I will write a book because I think we can translate something quite different from the art business I work in every day. Give you an example. If you see the last reports from the bank, from the big firms like Deloitte and other big fives in finance, you speak from art tactic report, from art business analysis, from what's the best way to invest in the blue colors of the last 10 years. So it's very cold, it's very mathematic, and it's really an asset view of things. And that's what I did in my everyday life with the risk strategy. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's a way of life. But when I'm in the train, when I travel, when I'm in my bicycle, I see something completely different. And I see that art can be everywhere in our everyday life. And I'm not an artist, but I see so many things all the day. One of the most beautiful paintings you can imagine. So if I give you an example, when I go in some exhibitions now with some friends or with my family, I say, oh, well, that's a famous painting they've got on the wall, but that's not the best I've seen from an artist because I saw another in a storage room. And And I thought, with this book, I created my way of poetry inspired by the Japanese haiku. Yeah. I wrote it in 3 months. The delay was very short to print it, so I created my own house to print the book. I created everything alone, and that's why I came as a Christmas present for that to my mother, and she had no voice when I came with this book. I just asked to my father, please, Dad, if you love me, just give me your opinion and tell me if I'm going in the wall very quickly, because in my everyday business life, I don't have to write some poetry in more business contracts. And that's why I wrote it. And the idea was to show some pieces of art in just a few sentences, just a few words, to give you the idea, the colors, and the feeling of life you can see in everyday life, in every moment, in every conditions. Yeah, that's why.
Wow, this is such a beautiful story and touching and creative. It's great. Yeah,
Thank you.
Beautiful. So Anne-Claire, you're also a mother and you have quite an important position with this new position you took. How do you juggle everything?
The best as I can, which means this is not the best. I would say I always try to do my best. The best when I'm in the job and the best when I'm with my little girl. I have a little girl who's 5.5 years old, which means that it's sometimes a bit difficult in the morning when you have to concentrate in some very financial lines and questions, and you just slept 2 or 3 hours during the night. That's one thing difficult. And the other is that when you come back home with your files and different things in the mind, and you have a little girl telling you, "Oh, come on, Mom, I have to show you the last dance I did tonight," or I don't know what. I would say what drives me for that is that when I'm with her, I don't think of the work, and I'm completely with her. Yeah. And it's not a question of time and of hours. I'm not with her all Wednesday afternoon, showing her in her music courses or dance courses, I don't know what. But when I'm at home with her, I'm completely with her. And I give you an example. She asked for studying violin. So we love music at home. I have a piano, some guitars, harmonica, what else. But she absolutely wanted to study the violin. So, oh goodness, how poor I am. She wants to study it. And with some other people, she practiced and exercised every day her violin. But with me on the Sunday afternoon, we are absolutely not working, but we are listening some music very loud in the flat, in the apartment, and we are dancing and we are singing to give her the taste of music. Yeah. And it's the same thing for the museums and the reading, everything. And I have to say, what drives me to try to be the best in the both jobs is that you spoke about woman in art and woman in job. And for me, it's important to have a little girl, and I want to show her that it's possible. It's possible to be a mother. It's possible to be an entrepreneur. It's possible to be a general director in a men's world. It's possible to travel all around the planet, but playing some Playmobil or Lego, I don't know what, with her. And it's possible to show her that you can be creative and curious. That's what I want to show. You can. Yeah. It's possible. You just have to open your mind, open your heart, and always be curious in the nature and the culture. That's what I try.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful what you're saying about being really present in the moment and being fully involved in the moment where we are. And I think this is one of the key of how we can do so many things at once, because it has so much more value to be really involved with another person, especially a child, and to be really there for them. And being this example for her, it's really beautiful. It's very great.
She's absolutely sure that my iPhone is just to take some pictures. So once she sleeps, I take the laptop and the iPhone again to work again once she sleeps. But when I'm with her in the evening and in the weekend, she's absolutely sure it's a very good store. It's just to take some photos, some pictures.
That's really cool. Is there anything else about your experience you would like to share, or some opinions you have about this entire idea of women in art?
I would say that they don't have to be fear. They don't have to be fear about what people think of them and about what the society thinks of them. They don't have to be fear about the family, about the economy. They don't have to be fear about the money. They don't have to be fear about the fight, and also about the energy and the work it needs to achieve the goals. So fear is the biggest enemy.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is that that's my way of thinking. But they don't have to forget, it's the same thing with my little girl. Two things are important for me in the art business and in every business. It's the culture and the nature. Because if you like the culture, you have very curious and you have some interests to develop many projects, many things. So that feeds you. And the second thing is the nature, because that's the best thing to see, that all things are such well done and such well organized with such incredible colors. And you can't say, if you like to read, if you like to go in some museums, in some artist laboratories, in some galleries, and if you like to go in the countryside, you can say, I'm boring, I don't know what I have to do, and I have no creativity, and I have no imagination. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. And and it's possible.
Yeah.
It's hard, sure.
Yeah.
But you can find the energy, and it's possible. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, so you just have to believe in it first, go for it, and then it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing it will be difficult. But
Yeah.
you have to go one by one by one by one by one. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was great.
I mean, the best place for that, because I'm discussing with an artist in a place where lots of music instruments and with some beautiful things in the wall. Yes, with lots of creativity and nature inspiration. So yeah, I'm quite comfortable. I could stay here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. I am so glad that Anne-Claire was able to come to record this episode in my studio. I hope this will inspire you and bring you a better understanding and some perspectives on the fascinating and sometimes mysterious world of art. It is true that as artists working in our studio for the most part, we are very far away from the business of art and its transactions. And I think it is really important to know that we are part of one of the biggest business that exists right now in the market, because it can help us imagine new outlooks on possible positions and intentions we might want to take. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep the dream alive. This podcast is supported by Pro Helvetia, the Swiss Arts Council, and the city of Lancy. We are so thankful for their support and commitment to culture, women, and the arts. Thanks for listening to Raw and Radical Women in the Arts podcast. Learn more about our featured artists and sign up for news and updates by visiting our website, rawradical.com.
Organic, radical, profound.
Please consider leaving us a comment and review on your preferred podcast listening platform to help others discover the show and take part in this global dialogue.
She, intuitive.
I am Maureen Broadbeck,
Fatal.
and until next time, keep the dream alive.
Woman.